just need to be left alone right now, man.
I think you've been left alone way too much.
Life's hard. The world is complicated.
Remember, you are not alone.
Love you, girl. I love you too.
Join the conversation. It's time to talk about it.
This Friday, catch a new episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway at 9/8 Central.
Follow your favorite CW shows by liking the CW Lexington on Facebook.
Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant. We welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers and hope you're having a nice weekend. Today we began meeting some of the candidates in that crowded Republican field of candidates for governor. Somerset Mayor Alan Keck is with us today. Keck was one of the last candidates to get in the race, but he's been campaigning hard since he announced his candidacy in late November. Keck has been mayor of Somerset during a time of growth and change, and he says he wants to bring his leadership style to the state level. When COVID hit hard and suddenly in 2020 and Governor Beshear closed all but essential businesses, Keck was among the local leaders pushing back and pressing for earlier reopenings. Today we'll talk about his campaign for governor, about Somerset and that key city in central Kentucky that is on Lake Cumberland. Mayor Keck, welcome. We appreciate you very much for coming in today.
Well, yeah, thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
You've been officially running for governor for a few months now, but obviously you don't have the name recognition statewide that some of the candidates do. Nor the money to run the ads that particularly one candidate has been doing. Do you think you're on the radar as a viable option for Republican voters in that May primary?
I certainly think so. You know, we're out talking to Kentucky voters who, like me, have a truck payment. They've got a mortgage. They understand the challenges that we're going through, and we understand that. We're listening to their concerns just like we did in Somerset. And so I absolutely think we're in the game, we're on the radar, and, you know, other candidates are starting to notice our platform and perhaps cherry pick a little bit of it, and so I know they're paying attention to what we're doing too.
How important, you said you're listening, how important is that? What are you learning? Because you're doing town halls this week, we're in Ashland, you've been all over the state, right?
Well, the best leaders listen to understand, not just respond, and that's been a lost art for politicians for many, many years. The issues are different across the state, but the one thing I continue to hear about is this workforce crisis. You know, folks that are working hard to make ends meet don't have as many people working alongside of them, and then employers are desperate for help. And as you know, Kentucky has been near the bottom in America in workforce participation, and we're bringing real solutions to that issue.
Is that a matter of training, or how do you convince more people to take part in?
Well, some of it's habits. You know, you talked about COVID a little bit. We were one of the last states to get rid of some of those federal subsidies. I think that was bad policy, bad decision making when businesses were reopened and hiring. The other thing we're talking about is sliding scale benefit reform. You know, policy where we take care of the working poor instead of those unwilling to work. And there's been a resounding message to that plan, that policy, you know, getting rid of this benefits cliff. And it's going to take work with our General Assembly. It's going to take work with members of Congress. But that policy can transform Kentucky and our workforce. Before
I dive right into issues, I do want to ask you, tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to the mayor. You grew up in Somerset, right?
I did, yeah.
And what was your path to the mayor's
Well, like you, native Southern Eastern Kentucky guy, and I'm a business person. You know, my father was an entrepreneur like his father. So I'm a fourth generation businessman, and I love the private sector. I love capitalism, where going to work every day, you have the opportunity to change your life or someone else's, create and share wealth. And I learned a lot in my private life. And as I looked at running for mayor, the genesis was I saw a town that had so much potential. A city that I knew wasn't reaching that potential, and I wanted to unleash it. I wanted to build a team that would sort of captivate imagination, that would tell our own story, that unique Kentucky story, and we've done that. As mayor, we've accomplished an incredible amount, and it left a lot of folks asking, Mayor, why is this not happening across Kentucky? And it left me wondering, what would our Commonwealth look like if it was happening in 40, 50, 60 cities?
Do you think, with what you've learned, that perspective could be beneficial? Being the mayor of a mid-sized city, how would that translate to the governor's office?
Well, I think it's huge. If you look, I would argue I'm uniquely qualified in this race. My private sector executive experience, and now running the city, one of the largest municipalities in the Commonwealth, it's on-the-job training. I deal with the exact same issues that I would deal with as governor: public safety, infrastructure, economic development, tourism, healthcare, working with a legislative body, which is my city council. And it's been incredible training. I do get asked real quick about, why not another statewide office? And I say, the training I'm getting, the opportunity to make a difference now is unmatched. And, we don't need another step in the ladder.
Well, don't you also get asked, are you in this race to build name recognition for maybe a future race?
It's a fair question to ask, and the answer is no. I'm in this race because I believe that Kentucky needs real leadership, and it needs it right now. And this is not a stepping stone race for me. I appreciate it when people ask that. It's always flattering that they think I might want to run for something else down the line. But I had a great life in business. I don't need politics. Candidly, if I'm not in this, I'll have more money, more free time, and less stress. And so it's truly public service for me.
People are well aware in your 5th Congressional District that Hal Rogers ran for lieutenant governor statewide the year before he ran for Congress and began his 40-plus years there.
I think we'll just have to call that a coincidence.
All right. You led a handful of mayors in pushing for earlier reopenings, as you noted, during the early part of the COVID pandemic. Governor Beshear said that he was trying to save lives, and you have said the reopenings could have been done safely and earlier, and you pushed for that. Does that issue, first of all, even have traction 3 years later, especially considering that the legislature stripped the governor of emergency powers going forward?
Well, I think what matters is a lot of candidates can talk about what they might do, what they think they'll do, or they'll theorize. And I can show Kentuckians exactly what we did. And I appreciated the work to save lives. My argument was, let's save lives and livelihoods. And I heard from citizens in my town every day. And it was the first time in their life they really needed their government to do something. And they were asking for my help. And that is why we got a coalition of mayors. I think it ended up being several dozen to launch these reopening plans and say, give us local control. Every city's not the same. And if we've got 5 or 6 cases in our county, let's get back to work. And I think people appreciated that leadership. I took a lot of arrows. There were a lot of folks saying that, blood would be on my hands. But we stood firm. We did what we thought was right with respect to the seriousness of the virus, but also the magnitude of how it was impacting people that were trying to go to work and provide for their families.
Well, you also remember during that time, we would have outbreaks would occur and you had to back up and kind of change policy. Would you have been willing to do that at the local level if you had gained control and you could have, say, dropped a local mask mandate or something like that?
No question. The best leaders, when they get new data, they're willing to pivot or adapt. And I would argue that was probably my biggest consternation with the decision from this administration is once they made a decision, it really felt like they sunk their heels in and they lagged in making that adjustment. Once we learned that maybe the efficacy of mask wasn't what we thought, or the spread wasn't as severe, the death rate wasn't as severe. This was a real virus, and it impacted certain demographics in a disproportionate way. And we wanted to treat that seriously, but we also didn't want to pick winners and losers and hurt our small businesses in a way that put a lot of them under.
You have said that Kentucky needs to grow, that our population growth is stagnant, and that you've mentioned workforce participation is below the national average. How do you address that? How do you make Kentucky more attractive to folks wanting to move here and go to work?
Yeah, well, you sell it for the gem that it is. Just like we did in Somerset, we started to be proud of our story. And I think we have to celebrate exactly who we are, lean in to those Kentucky attributes and values. I have a slogan that I like to say, a couple of them. But the first one's come to Kentucky where the cost of living's half and the quality of life's double. But the other thing is let's stop apologizing for what we're not and be really proud of who we are. It's worked in Somerset. In the last decade, Kentucky had their second slowest decade of growth. We were double that. Somerset's growing as an East Kentucky city, and so that model works. We need a governor with a growth mindset who will be an ambassador for this Commonwealth and tell the world what a special place it is.
So you really think that the population needs to jump in the state?
Listen, Einstein can't solve the math problems we've got in Frankfurt if we don't have more people living here, working here, and paying into the system. It just won't work. When we've got our neighbors who we're losing to, which is the most important border that I'm going to be talking about, is the southern border and the northern border of our Commonwealth. Tennessee and Indiana to have 7 million people, and we're languishing at 4.5. It's not good enough, and it's not going to work.
Do you like the industry that we are attracting, electric battery plants and so on?
I think there's tremendous value in it. I'll tip my cap to the legislature and the governor on that. I think those are jobs of the future. What I want to hear is the and or the then what of who's going to work there. How are we going to train them? How are we going to equip them? Can we get folks off the sidelines with these sliding scale benefits that I mentioned to make sure that they will get back into the workforce? In Somerset, we're training them in the jails. Hospitality training, soft skills training, welding training before they ever get out so that they're going to be a productive member of society. Policies like that have to be spread across Kentucky. We have to be innovative and creative, and we have to be willing to bring people together and share credit.
Mayor, you have said that you push for cities to have more flexibility with revenue. Does that mean local sales taxes rather than the heavy reliance on occupational and property taxes?
It absolutely could, as long as a corresponding cut in the income tax follows it. I'm not for any net tax increase, but if we can get to zero, I think we should allow communities to control their own destiny.
Which requires a constitutional amendment.
It does.
Would you be willing to go out and work for that?
No, as governor, I think I'd speak loudly to it. I heard some positive remarks from President Stivers to KLC about the Senate's possible willingness to work towards that. But again, I want to emphasize that the first part of that tax reform has to be the elimination of the income tax, allowing people to keep more of their own money instead of it all going to Frankfurt. But we have these punitive taxes on production instead of consumption here, like the occupational tax. That's a tax on the worker. I'd love to eliminate that and, be taxed on what you choose to spend, not on everything you make.
Candidate for Governor Ryan Quarles, the state agriculture commissioner, this week called for legalizing medical marijuana.
Yeah.
You knew this question was coming. He says it should be treated like medicine and not taxed. What is your position on that?
Well, I took a position on that months ago, just like the rest of our platform. We released it in full on day one. I think it's incumbent on every candidate. They should tell Kentuckians exactly where they intend to take the state. We did that on November 21st when we announced. I do support medical marijuana. I don't know that now in 2023 that's exactly a bold idea. Perhaps it would have been 10 years ago. So we're in line with that. I agree with that, and I think it does need to be treated like medicine. Well, let's don't call it medical marijuana. And so we don't pay taxes on our prescriptions now. We shouldn't pay taxes on that one either.
We all know Kentucky has quite a drug problem, and that fentanyl has made the issue worse. One candidate, Ambassador Kelly Craft, has been campaigning very hard on that particular issue, spending a lot of money in that regard. But the state is spending a lot of money and providing treatment, bringing some of those numbers down. What more can be done on the drug front?
Well, I think we have to have an honest conversation about drugs being a symptom of a problem, not the problem itself. Why do folks get on drugs? It's despair, it's destitute, it's lack of hope and opportunity. I want to talk about the issues that will really help Kentucky families. It's one reason why family policy is a part of our game plan, because drugs is not the initial challenge. Again, it's a symptom. I think medical marijuana might be a part of the solution to the opioid crisis. Here we're not allowed to prescribe something that's safer, less addictive, and more natural, but we're continuing to prescribe things that are known killers. Getting people back to work, Bill, I think is key as well, because if you're providing value, you're contributing to society, you're going to be less inclined to do some of these nefarious activities. We want to lead boldly on this issue with compassion as well, but I would argue that this war on drugs is now 40 plus years long. The drug might change, but the war doesn't seem to, and so we need to get back to the root of some of these problems.
I want to drill in a little bit though on this getting people back to work.
Sure.
How do we had the president of the Council on Post-Secondary Education, Dr. Aaron Thompson, was in recently, and and he said, we are having a lot of young men who graduate, who do not go to work, who do not go on to college, and are not seeking a certification of any kind, and we don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well,
how do you entice them into the workforce?
Carrot or stick, either you take away their benefit or you let them keep some of that benefit on top of what they're making. We use the analogy, because I think it's accurate, that you might make $12 an hour to stay home and choose not to work, some type of welfare. And we're scared to call it welfare anymore. That's insulting now. But I'm going to call it welfare because I think that's what it is. If folks prefer public assistance reform, that's fine. What if they could keep half that benefit? And instead of going back to work for $15 an hour, they were allowed to keep 6 of that 12, and now they're making 21. Well, that's worth going to work for. And so, I want to take care of the working poor. There's a lot of working families, single moms working 2 jobs, still struggling to get by, that if they make just a little bit more money, they lose all of their benefit. And so addressing this benefit cliff, talking about sliding scale, it seems so commonsensical that it should have happened already. And I don't want to speak to what hasn't been done, but I think we can get it done.
You have called for higher teacher pay, and so has the governor. The legislature has not considered that in this session. They have been focused on other things in schools. Do you agree with the legislature's current policy and moving forward on lots of social issues, really, that they've been discussing?
Well, I think they're important issues, but they probably wouldn't be my priority. Perhaps it's a short session is why. But, I've always said that if you show me your checkbook and your calendar, I'll tell you what's important to you. And I think in state government, if kids are our priority, then our spending should reflect that. Now, look, our per pupil rate is about in the middle, I think, in America. But I think, again, it's an area where we should get more creative. Can we add student support personnel to take some of that burden of the mental health challenges and behavioral health challenges that kids are now facing, take that off the teacher and add somebody into the school? Are our schools safe enough? I advocated early for school resource officers. When I got elected mayor, we made sure that every school in the city limits had one before it was even discussed in Frankfurt as a mandate. And so some of those types of issues, I think we can ensure that teachers and our kids are a priority with resources. But, I like to say it's word and deed. It's not just money, it's intent.
All right. We take a break. We're with Somerset Mayor Alan Keck, a Republican candidate for governor, and we'll wrap up with him in just a moment.
After a busy morning, this DQ breakfast bowl lets me take a moment all to myself. So I'd like to take a moment to recognize you, DQ breakfast bowl. Somehow you fit all my breakfast favorites all in one convenient bowl. Warm, fluffy eggs, hash browns, sausage, cheese, and grilled onions. Nestled in a hearty bowl topped with my choice of savory gravy or zesty salsa. Oh, we should all be so selfless and delicious. DQ, happy tastes good.
Spring is here, and it's time to schedule your spring tune-up. The safety and comfort of your family is our top priority here at Comfort Master. Don't wait for things to start heating up. Give us a call here at Comfort Master.
Every word matters. And the Beast.
If I had $1,000 for every time that happens, I wouldn't have to host the show anymore.
Like never before.
List.
25 words or less. Weekdays at 12:30 on the CW Lexington.
Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. We're here with Alan Keck, the mayor of Somerset and Republican candidate for governor, and I want to ask him a couple of Somerset questions, but one more thing about you're running to be governor statewide. That's what you would like to do. Do you feel equipped to address the issues in all of Kentucky, in the urban areas of Louisville, a large city, Lexington, a large city with a known problem with shootings and some crime issues that the city's been struggling with, huge tourism opportunities in Kentucky. The Eastern Kentucky Mountains still struggling after the floods, Western Kentucky after the tornadoes. Can you deal with all of that, having the experience of being the mayor of Somerset?
There's no doubt in my mind. Part of the beauty of being the mayor is getting to work alongside hundreds of other mayors, listening to their challenges, understanding why they're successful, maybe why they're not. Public safety has been a big part of our platform because we've led the way in Somerset on that. We're blessed with one of the best police chiefs in the state. And, back to those mayors, I was honored in 2021 to be the elected official of the year out of all the cities, over 2,600 elected officials. So they've seen my leadership. What we can get done and accomplish. They've seen my ability to build a team because no one man or woman can do this job. They need to have the humility to understand they've got to surround themselves with other talented, convicted people who care about this state. We can get it done, and Kentucky will be on the move. We'll start to win again if I get that opportunity.
You've said that Kentucky does not spend enough money to promote tourism. What are we missing out on?
Well, we're not leaning into what makes us special. This is an incredibly beautiful state with diverse tourism opportunities, from outdoor recreation in the east to horses and bourbon in central and northern Kentucky. Obviously, in southern Kentucky, we love our lakes. And then west Kentucky, art and agriculture abounds. And so why not invest in the things that we're gifted in instead of pulling that money and spreading it to goodness knows where? It's not good enough, and I think we need to do more to promote what a special place this is.
You know, this Democratic governor, Andy Beshear, has asked the Republican legislature for considerable spending in other areas, including tourism and other things that the Republican legislature will not go along with.
Yeah.
Are you convinced that if you were of their party, things might be different?
Well, I've had a unique ability my whole life to build consensus and to bring people together. And so, you know, part of that is also, I mentioned listening earlier, listening to men and women in the General Assembly. You know, and I'll pick on both sides. We've had governors recently that didn't appreciate, you know, that need to build consensus. And so we'll work with them, absolutely. They'll educate me on some things, and I'll make sure I share my vision in a way that will get them on board, I hope.
Where are things in Somerset right now? I know you've redone the theater down there.
Yeah.
You have alcohol sales seems to have been somewhat transformational for your city.
It has certainly helped us. We've had record revenue across all sectors, Bill, because we're growing. Again, leaning into the things that we think make us special. That heartbeat, that sense of community in our downtown is back. And so things are really well. You know, we've had record number of jobs announcements, both in job creation and total investment. I think more are on the way, and we've got some exciting investments in this second term that the city's going to make to improve the quality of life and quality of place for our residents.
Alan Keck, Mayor of Somerset, candidate for governor, thanks for coming. We appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
We'll see you along the trail, right? And we'll be back on Kentucky Newsmakers in just a moment.
Do you suffer from knee pain? Ever been diagnosed with osteoarthritis? Or worried about the risks involved with knee surgery?
It hurt all the time, like the nerves were rubbing against each other.
I was at the point of either replace my knees because I'm tired of this pain.
Get the relief you need without surgery. We're Arthritis Knee Pain Centers, the premier leaders in non-surgical knee pain treatments. Instead of surgically replacing your knees, our state-of-the-art procedures replenish the depleted natural cushioning in your joints with an FDA-approved shock-absorbing gel, without surgery and without downtime.
After the first injection, I knew it was going to work.
We've successfully treated thousands of patients. Medicare and most private insurance cover this procedure.
Full motion, no pain, walking, everything just back normal like it used to be.
Now with locations in Lexington, call 1-800-829-5680 for a free no-obligation knee pain assessment or go to arthritis-kneepain.com.
Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers from WKYT. It was a busy week in the state legislature. A juvenile justice bill would provide money for staffing and treatment for young folks. There is a school discipline bill that has gotten a lot of discussion. Another bill that resulted in protests is one that some say targets the LGBTQ community. That's moving forward in Frankfort. Senate Bill 115 originally would have banned drag performances within 1,000 feet of places like parks, schools, and even homes. LGBTQ advocates filled the room as a Senate committee heard from those for and against Senate Bill 115. If it passes, it would ban drag shows in many public places. Senator Lindsey Tishner revamped the bill with her focus on ensuring that these performances stay away from children.
A person is guilty of engaging in an adult performance when he or she engages in an adult performance on publicly owned property or in a location where the person knows or should know that the adult performance could be viewed by a person under the age of 18.
And while opponents of Senate Bill 115 are left feeling frustrated, they're going to continue to speak up, and they feel that they can see some success in the future In Tennessee, lawmakers last week passed a bill of their own that bans drag shows in public. And lawmakers in the House passed a bill that would give teenagers a new way to communicate troubling issues or mental health concerns in schools. It's called the Safe KY Act, and it sets up a pilot project through the University of Louisville to establish an app. Students could use that app to text directly to professionals their concerns they may have, and so there could be crisis intervention. It establishes the Kentucky Health Safety Center.
To create, implement, and maintain an app for middle and high schoolers, college students to access mental health professionals to help divert crisis and provide some guidance.
The app could also be used as a tool for students to text concerns about school violence or to report incidents they see. That passed unanimously out of a House Health Committee. And stay with WKYT for continuing coverage of the state legislative session. Neurologists at the University of Kentucky are in the spotlight once again. Their work with the Sanders Brown Center on Aging helped a little-known drug gain some big fame. Lecanemab is now celebrated, has been accepted for approval from the FDA. Doctors in Lexington have been studying it for more than 13 years. WKYT's Kristen Kennedy investigates what it means for families fighting dementia.
Everybody doing okay?
We're doing good, staying real busy. Once every 2 weeks, these two old friends find their rooms, find their chairs.
Just hold that arm like that.
All right.
And settle in for an infusion.
If no anything else to snack on or anything?
Not fun.
Dr. Jim Jackson and Mike Brown are participants in a study tracking the effects of a drug called lecanemab. Their wives, friends for more than 40 years, started noticing small signs of dementia in their husbands.
But Jim and Mike were both so interested in participating in a study that might help future generations. And so they were both tested to get into this study. They wanted you at a particular place. And fortunately, they were both at the same place. And so we were fortunate to get in together.
The couple's carpool 1 hour and 15 minutes west to Lexington.
It would be difficult, I think, to make that drive by ourselves every other week. And so doing it with friends always makes things more fun, even if they're not fun things.
The drug the men get through the infusion only recently received accelerated approval from the FDA. Medicare won't yet cover its costs. They want traditional approval first. So right now, only trial participants are receiving the drug.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much.
How's the big guy doing?
The neurologist studying its effects on Dr. Jackson, Mr. Brown, and others is Dr. Gregory Jica.
I like him. He's very straightforward, and I feel comfortable.
Early tests show lecanemab can remove amyloid plaques from patients' brains. Those plaques, doctors say, play a pivotal role in Alzheimer's disease. Getting lecanemab to the general population is only part of the ongoing project for the Sanders Brown Center on Aging. Figuring out how long and with what frequency the medicine works is another.
The clinical trials themselves were 18 months in duration. Is 18 months all that we need to administer until we've cleaned amyloid out of the brain? Or does the medication need to be used for a more prolonged period of time to sustain the benefits seen with the medication?
In your decades of studying this, is this one of the largest breakthroughs that you've seen?
This is truly a pivotal moment in the field.
We all know that there's no cure yet that's been found for this condition, but the medicine has proven to be able to delay the decline in memory issues for a really significant number of people.
Mrs. Jackson is hopeful the medicine is helping.
We know that this can slow disease progression by 27 to 40%, depending on the different endpoints that you're looking at. And for a disease that has a 10 to 12-year course, slowing it by a third or a quarter is tremendous. That buys years by our projections.
These couples are taking the years, 2 weeks at a time.
I've read that sugar easy.
At the UK Sanders Brown Center on Aging, Kristen Kennedy, WKYT.
Very important work, and Sanders Brown is always looking for volunteers and donations. The QR code on your screen will take you directly to their website, and you can find out more. That's Kentucky Newsmakers. We want to thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you make it a good week ahead.
Couldn't imagine life without getting loaded. I have something even better. I have dignity.
Mom. Weeknights at 11 on the CW Lexington.
There are going to be some things coming out about your dad. Did you know he was Batman?
There's no Batman. Who's going to solve the murder of Bruce Wayne?
An entire city thinks that we killed Batman. I was framed.
We're a lot of things. Joker's daughter, sidekick, Batman's orphan.
We're going to find who really killed my dad.
Gotham Knights. New series premieres Tuesday, March 14th. Only on the CW.
Watch WKYT News at 10 on the CW Lexington.